Reddit, what happened at the wildest party you've ever attended? I came home from a business trip one evening, tired, looking forward to going to bed, and with a migraine, and found a dozen or so people in my living room having a loud obnoxious party. Cans of cheap beer and dirty dishes everywhere, crappy music blaring, etc. No way in heck was I going to get any rest. It seems my roommate had decided to throw a party on the spur of the moment, and had run out of beer early and gone out to get more, leaving my home filled with people I didn't know. So I went in my room and got my knitting basket and brought it out to the party and sat down in a corner and started knitting. Soon enough a young lady came along and asked about it, so I offered to teach her to knit. I'm very good at this. I can have you knitting in 15 minutes. My roommate came home about an hour later. The local liquor store was out of her brand and she had to find another, and then some problem with the bus, only to find that her raucous party had turned into a knitting circle. They turned off the music so they could hear me. They cleaned up the living room so they wouldn't get crap all over the yarn. They were all sitting around knitting their first swatch, and they all thought it was their idea. You mind fricked them into a quiet evening. I like you. I know this kid, we'll call him Carl, who decided it would be fun to play with fire whilst very fricked up. We've all been there. However, it just so happens that Carl has balls of steel and absolutely no self-preservation instincts. I'm at my friend's house and we're just having a kickback, drinking and whatnot. The party is winding down and there's only a few people left. I go to buy more beer, and when I leave this kid is hitting tennis balls dipped in gasoline with a baseball bat in the backyard. Whatever, it's not my house. Fast forward 15 minutes later and I crap you not, I pull up to the house and the fricking street is on fire. A solid 10-foot chunk of the street is fully ablaze and I can smell the gasoline. Cops are everywhere and there is a police chopper in the distance. Freaking Carl. So I park the car and run up to the house to find the girl who owns the place crying her eyes out. She goes on to tell me that Carl in his infinite wisdom had decided to try to build a Molotov cocktail. He succeeded. However, when he tried to hit the wall in the backyard, he threw too high and hit the street instead. He then proceeded to pour the rest of the 5 gallons of gas on the already raging inferno. Carl booked it when he heard sirens and a full-on manhunt with dogs and a helicopter ensued, yet he somehow got off with no charges. Once again, freaking Carl. TLDR. Carl isn't allowed to drink Jaeger anymore. Carl that kills people. Northeastern University, Boston, Halloween 1981. I was a freshman that year, and it just so happened that Halloween was on a Saturday night. There's a street just off campus that's lined with 3-story brownstones, and all of the flats were rented out to students. Dang near every flat had a Halloween party that night, and they'd had all day to party. Somewhere that evening the partiers just poured out of the flats, and it became a huge block-long party, fueled by drugs and alcohol. Things started getting out of control. People started forgetting where their clothes costumes were. Some small fires were started. Then, cars started getting flipped over and added to the smaller fires. A busload of Asian tourists unfortunately took a wrong turn and ended up on that street, and it was taken as a challenge, with about 100 people on each side trying to see if they could flip over the bus and yelling heave ho. At that point, the cops became something less than amused, and called out the riot squad in full helmets, shields. Barricades of flaming dumpsters were erected, and that's about the time the tear gas canisters started being fired at the crowd. I forget how many were eventually arrested. Good times. Fact checker. Halloween in 1981 was a Saturday. Whole story checks out. I went to a party at a friend's house in the middle of nowhere where a few people were dropping acid, and everyone else was blackout drunk, except for the DDs like me. Needless to say, weird things happened. One girl was running around the yard hugging, sometimes humping, trees and naming their souls. A drag queen showed up, swilling gin straight out of the bottle. I look out the kitchen window at some point and a few guys from the party were herding my friend's cattle into another field through his yard. A gay orgy broke out in the office of all places. My buddy passed out on his bed, and my friend was almost at the point where she was going to be sick in my car, so we left. I came back the next morning to grab a few things I forgot and found my friend asleep on the floor where his bed used to be. Out the window I could see his bed in the middle of the field the cattle used to be in. Perfectly made. The bed linens were blowing in the breeze like a dang fabric softener commercial. He had a wooden bed with a large headboard and footboard, so several people had to have disassembled that sucker, taken it outside, reassembled it, and then put the sheets back on it. Even did hospital corners and threw the decorative pillows on there, just so. My friend had no recollection of getting up and moving whatsoever. Nothing was broken or stolen, including the livestock. An anonymous group of someone's had cleaned the house, done the dishes, and taken out the trash by the time I returned. Nobody remembered confessed to doing this. Nothing was broken or stolen, including the livestock. An anonymous group of someone's had cleaned the house, done the dishes, and taken out the trash by the time I returned. Nobody remembered confessed to doing this. Good guys. 2 girls died, and more were injured. It was freaking terrifying. There were hundreds of people there and the party had spilled out onto the streets, and a car drove through the people. He was found guilty of murder. I'd be prepared to bet that you live in New Zealand. Woke up in my duplex at 2 AM to the sounds of banging and suspension, and in panic mode I jolt upright. Oh crap, someone is stealing my car. I rush to the window and look out as my eyes slowly focus. Across the street's party got out of control, and it was spreading to the neighbors' yards. A middle-aged couple lived there with their teenage son, so it was a bit surprising. There is a couple of people on my lawn passed out, and I can see across the road that people are throwing crap out the windows. Loud music. Act. 4 really drunk dudes are carrying a couch and some lamps out the front door. Now my attention turns to the real problem. There is a guy banging a girl on the hood of my car, and they were getting to a climax, which is what woke me up in the first place. After something like 30 seconds of letting my eyes adjust and for me to collect my thoughts, I find the keys on my nightstand and press the horn button. The dude misses mid-thrust and slams his knee into my bumper. I can hear it from inside. Left a dent, but worth it. The next week I talked to the neighbors and heard the damage. Someone had jammed the tub and left it running. It flooded the house and ruined their upstairs carpet. People slashed all the furniture and broke their empties on the walls, leaving marks and dents. Must have been at least $100,000 in damages. Cock block, but funny cock block. Semi throwaway here because I switch up my accounts when telling personal details so I can't be identified. Was at a friend's 21st birthday in a warehouse in an industrial area. Everyone was high on mushrooms, coke, MDMA, cannabis, alcohol, and whatever else was going around that night. A band was having a loud jam and everyone was dancing frenetically. There were jugglers and fire twirlers. The keyboardist was so coked up he headbutted the keys and there was blood dripping out of his forehead while he played his solo. Then we heard a loud bang on the front door. Everyone stopped playing and went out to peer through the letterbox hole. I didn't see because I was tripping and a little scared that they were gonna stab me in the eye through the hole. But it was a few guys with balaclavas and knives and guns. None of us had any weapons. We tried to escape out the back route, but there were guys waiting around there too. They screamed at us to shut the frick up and let them in or they were gonna kill us. After not too much deliberation, we decided not to let them in and called the cops. They started trying to hack the door down with a crowbar when luckily the cops arrived just in time and they ran off into the night. Turned out they ran a lab in the warehouse next door and didn't want any noise complaints drawing an attention. TLDR. Took mushrooms in a big castle. Got sieged. Accidentally read that as baklava, which is delicious. Buddy had a party that someone posted to Facebook. What was to be maybe 30 people turned into 150 and people parrying in a double-wide trailer. It was pouring outside so mud got tracked in and the carpet went from white to dark brown on minutes. Eventually the crowd went outside and a massive brawl ensued fueled by drugs and alcohol. 100 plus people's moshing in his front yard which had turned into thick mud. The end of the night there was people passed out all across his yard. Probably 10 cars stuck on his front lawn. At the beginning of the fight I gave my keys to my girlfriend and told her to lock herself in my truck. I went back to my truck to leave after it quieted down and find my truck covered in mud handprints. And it turned out my GF let 3-4 other girls get in. So I had to deal with 3-4 nutcases crying and drunk. The only way this story could get any more hillbilly is if some dude busted out his banjo at the end of the story. I got hammered on my 20th birthday, wandered the streets of Copenhagen for hours, and finally wound up celebrating with a bunch of strangers snorting see who sang me happy birthday in unison. It was fantastic. I'm going to Copenhagen next weekend, renting a flat near Christiania. That's gonna be awesome. I was at a party where there was this really loud, insanely drunk girl making a fool of herself all night. At the end of her shenanigans she went into a room with some guy. When she emerged she had a giant load in her hair. She proceeded to sit down on the couch and passed out. A spectacle for the rest of the night. A giant load in her hair. This was the best one yet. Had a crazy night that ended in a penthouse apartment. Only an hour after passing out we were woken by the German equivalent of SWAT and 20+ German police officers who thought we had murdered someone. The chief was wearing sweatpants as he was called out of bed to attend the scene on a Saturday morning. Pretty crazy. Dude got shot and chopped up over a drug debt in Sault Ste. Marion. Wouldn't have wanted to be a kid at that party. They were all forced to take chunks of him so they would be in on it and wouldn't tell. Two people nobody knew started having sex in the corner of the room. It was weird because we were playing laser tag for my 11th birthday party. I was Thor and I won that game. Probably because I shot the guy in the back and watched the whole time. I made out with two married chicks. Licked my friend's wife's nipple for him to do a tequila salt and lime shot. Ended up crying at one point on the floor drunk. Also got woken up by a couple of swingers arguing about sharing. And ended up sleeping in the same bed as the hostess. Woke up with her in just her underwear snoring into my ear. Swinger Halloween parties are awesome. I went to one party where I knew only about 5 people and the other 100 or so were completely random to me. First of all I took an hour-long cab ride with one friend and a German exchange student, which she paid for all by herself at her insistence. As soon as I arrive at this unknown girl's party I see one of the few friends I know, let's call him Sammy, because that's his name, on the lap of the girl's mum chatting her up. Confused, I say hi and let him get back to his thing. I go to look for some coke to mix with the alcohol I brought with me and ask the dad, who's completely fine with a 17-year-old guy blatantly hitting on his wife, where I could find some coke. Sniff sniff. It's upstairs in the bathroom. Now frick off and get high. The rest of the party turns into a blur from here, with my best mate doing a classic Anchorman by screaming everybody I just had sex with Adele in the bushes and later asking me do many people know I had sex, to which I had to reply you literally yelled it to everyone in the kitchen. Next thing I remember is stumbling around in the yard as the morning light starts to rise and 2 naked men going around tackling to the ground anyone they can find. After this I decide it's too much and find a closet to fall asleep in, which already has 4 people asleep in it. I wake up later to find the entire kitchen floor covered in what used to be really nice china, and several bent spoons in my pockets. I went to a party at a really nice house in undergrad. Big party. Got wasted. Earlier in the day I had eaten a large meatball sandwich from a local deli. A cute girl asked drunk but me to take a shot with her. I do. 5-10 minutes pass as I sit on the couch trying to convince myself I'm not going to puke. I got up and rushed to bathroom, pushing some girl out of the way as she came out the door, holding my other hand over my mouth as meatball sub brushes up my throat. The thick orange mixture of chunky meatballs, marinara sauce, stomach acid, beer, and vodka spews through my fingers as I try to make it to the purple toilet. In fact, everything in the bathroom was purple. I cough and finish puking and stood up to see the mess I had made. It was terrible. There was thick red paste everywhere. I tried to wash the terrible taste from my mouth with some water from the sink, and rushed out to the kitchen to find something to try to clean it up. I found half a roll of paper towels and rushed back to the bathroom. I drunkenly smeared the mess all over the place and did a terrible job cleaning up. I'm sure I just made it worse. The party's host ended up kicking me out of the house and I passed out on an air mattress in the back of my friend's van. Whoa. Thinking back on it now, it's pretty creepy that he had a mattress in his van. Anyways, I was jolted wake up the next morning, hungover as frick as the van zooms down the interstate. My friend later informed me that I had puked all over Prince's signature. Pretty crazy night. TLDR. Got wasted and puked all over Prince's signature. Barbecue gradually descended into an orgy. Highlights included someone smoking opium, random hookup in a sauna cheered on by everyone outside, including the girl's boyfriend, someone being set on fire, on purpose, homemade absinthe, knife show and tell, one by a sword umbrella, neighbors complaining after being woken up by noisy BDSM scene involving whips in the garden. Don't party with goths, you can't keep up. Why the frick has everyone but me been to a goddamned party that's turned into a fricking orgy? My very first party, I was 15. Arrived late to at least 60 completely wasted people. First thing in the hall were 4 guys crossing their dongs like in a sword fight, one yelling "on guard." Continue to living room. Not too bad here. Wild game of drunk twister going on. Of course some of the people ended up having sex. But, well, went upstairs. Still looking for a friend. Enter the master bathroom. In the tub sits one of my friends. It was his house. To be fair, eating chocolate cream cake with both hands and good parts of the rest of his body, along with most of the room, completely covered in it, giving me a brown smile and telling me to hop in while another equally drunk friend tried to clean him up, with the help of one single sheet of toilet tissue, while soothingly murmuring there, nice and clean, bath time, tea. Backed out of that room too. Finally found my friend right next to a naked, passed out couple who obviously had been having sex moments earlier. He had this wide-eyed stare and claimed to not have said anything when they didn't notice he also was in the room, as he didn't want to disturb them and be impolite. Well, we then proceeded to actually have a good time. Later on the ride home, the girl next to me gave her boyfriend a hand job right there in the back seat. I feel still bad for our designated driver till today. You sounded like a ghost. Priests and schoolgirls Halloween party. Huge Victorian house. Liquor flowing. Bonfire in the backyard. They built a full-size confession booth in the backyard just for this event, with a fancy screen and a glory hole with a red velvet curtain. I'm in the confession booth, wearing my secretary outfit from the film Secretary, getting fricked like nobody's business, everybody's business, by a guy in orange convict suit. Next, I'm waiting in line for the bathroom, making out with some guy dressed as a Russian soldier. Next, my friend's in the bathroom, crying on the toilet in her schoolgirl uniform, because her ex is there with someone else, while she's pooping. Next, people are doing lines of coke. I hope I'm not being rude. Mind if I do some coke? Next, I realize this party's gone from wild awesome to wild gtfo. I'm leaving the scene as cop cars are pulling up. I was at a party in Australia, at this vacation home in a neighborhood of retired people a bit outside town. The attendees were mostly 19-20 years old, so one of the crucial things here happened to be that the guy-girl ratio was about 2:1, and everyone was frisky as frick. Things started out pretty chilled, with people smoking around the bonfire, drinking and having fun. But later in the evening, as people started hooking up and it became evident that there weren't enough girls to go around, many of the guys started using their creative energies for other things. So one guy punched a hole in the wall. Don't ask me how. One of my friends asked him how the heck did you do that, and he responded with, "It's easy mate, you just go like this," and punched another hole. The host eventually ran out of toilet paper, and one of the bathrooms was just covered in puke. Apparently hitting the bowl is quite difficult. Thankfully the house had 2 bathrooms. The other one did get its door ripped off the hinges though. Also, there wasn't enough firewood, so we had to use the branches of the garden trees as firewood. Eventually, all the low branches were gone, so some guys figured it would be a good idea to rip out boards from the garden fence and eventually burn the lawn chairs. One guy spilled goon, Australian white wine, on his t-shirt and put it down on the bonfire to dry it off. The next time I saw him, he had first-degree burns on his feet and about 10 holes singed through his shirt. Surprise. Surprise. Eventually, one of the pensioners in the neighborhood called the cops and the party was shut down. We longboarded to the beach, watched the stars and did the sex robot dance. Good times. I should make clear on behalf of Australia's wine industry that goon is box wine. The cheaper the better. After crowd surfing in the living room, went to bed in some random room as I was tired as frick and it was 8 AM. About 30 minutes later, this guy I met earlier and someone who was apparently Kate Moss's niece began fricking on the same bed as me. I was just like, yeah whatever, I'll just try to get back to sleep, when suddenly the slats came out of the bed on my side, causing I then hooked up with someone in front of their sister, blacked out and woke up on the tube. A few years ago, my friend Caleb held a house party at his place. We called Caleb Fat Bamboo because he was an aspiring pornster. Then there were these two other friends of mine named Chris and Ryan. Chris' nickname was Yuha because crap always got broken around him. Ryan didn't have a nickname. But whenever you got these two guys together, the homoeroticism went through the roof. It was a dangerous game of chicken and somebody's wang always ended up visible by the end of the night. As the night wore on, these two got worse and worse the more they drank until they both passed out on top of one another in the recliner. We tried to wake them up, but no matter what we did it didn't work. They were in an alcoholic coma so deep Caleb even slapped Chris in the face hard enough to split his lip. Nothing. Then Caleb and I looked at each other and shared a terrible idea. We hoisted them into Caleb's guest room, took off what clothing was left. I wrapped a towel around my fist and punched Ryan in the butt as hard as I could. Then did the same to Chris. We brought the stereo into the room and set it to go off at 7:30 in the morning. Then we set up a camera in the closet and made sure you had to be looking at it to notice it. We set it to start recording at the same time the alarm went off. To this day, neither of them know that we have a video of the two of them waking up and realizing what they think they've done, then making a pact with each other to never speak of it to anyone. Ryan is now engaged, and Caleb and I are toying with the idea of having some reception entertainment. Will you at least let them know it was all a setup? Me and some friends were with the son of a Russian defense minister who shall not be named. We show up at a club and he wants the biggest VIP room. 50 Cent is standing right next to us and his manager or whatever wants it too. My Russian friend agreed to pay £6,000 for the night. 50 responds with £10,000 for the night. My friend then agrees £18,000 for the night and 50 backed off and went somewhere else. 50 was not happy and tried to intimidate my friend into backing out. My friend said want to make it 10 and we strolled into the club. Sometimes I wonder why I can't be the son of basically a glorified Russian arms dealer. The night was insane but too long of a story to post in such a huge comment thread like this. I'll write it and post if there is interest. He. TLDR. Russian friend outbid 50 Cent for a VIP room. Went to a party in high school that was way out of town at a friend's house that had almost no neighbors. At about midnight, a cop car rolls up and he walks into the kitchen of the house and yells nobody move. Until I get a B, it turns out that he was invited to the party by my friend's older sister. The night then took off because some people brought fireworks and started setting them off. Kids from 3 miles out saw the fireworks and rode their quads to the house. The party that began as about 40 people ended up being close to 150 between people inviting others and kids just seeing it from a distance and knew who lived there. Later that night the cop had sex with one of the girls from college on the front porch in front of about 20 people. Needless to say, we never got speeding tickets from him after that. This party is thrown every year at a certain well-known university by a certain very secret society. Hugh Grant and Boris Johnson were members. If that helps. You are put on blacked out coaches and taken to a secret location in the countryside where they search you for phones and cameras before letting anyone in. If you've got a phone or camera, the bouncers snap it in half and let you in. Inside, it's like nothing I've ever seen before. The entertainment is various strippers, all with dark twists, like a Black Swan themed show where the girl pulled feathers attached to needles out of her skin. All the alcohol is paid for, and there is a tent for drugs as well as roaming dealers in uniforms. Every year the theme is something cryptic so people come in the trippiest most nude outfits. Maybe half of the girls were topless. I wore tights, gold body paint and eye makeup. If you want to see a future prime minister blow coke off a naked girl, it's a place to be. I posted this in another thread, but it also comes under the wildest party I've attended. I held a house party for my 26th last year, and proceeded to drink myself freaking stupid. So stupid that my mate dragged me to his car and drove me to Macca's to get some lining for my alcohol-filled stomach. I returned to the party, still blind and loaded up on Big Macs and cheeseburgers. I was dumped on my bed, completely paralytic and proceeded to chuck up all over the show. I was rescued from choking on my own vomit. tossed in the bathroom and sat in the shower whilst I got my crap together. My sheets were stripped, and somehow my bed became an awesome place to hang out for people. But we'll get back to that. After showering, and having a girl who was keen on me chat with me whilst I showered just to get a look in on my naked, and brushing my teeth, I proceeded to drink some more, and single-handedly made out with a dozen of the girls at the party. But wait, it gets better. I stumbled into my room, where 2 of my mates and half a dozen of my female friends were peeing getting handsy. I leaned over a couple of them to pull out my riding crop for the lulz, and ended up making out with one of them, whilst groping another one's breasts, then made 2 of them make out whilst another one was sucking on my mate's girlfriend's nipples. Next thing I know, clothes are coming off. I have the girl I've been chasing for ages sucking my dong, the girl who perved on me naked in the shower is riding my face, and the others are going heck for leather up the other end of the bed. Dong sucker decides to mount me, and after a while of that I'll lift face rider off, and pick up the girl who's still riding me. In full view of the impromptu orgy, I pin her up against my room's windowsill, and plow her for as long as my alcohol-riddled limp dong can handle. We all clean up, party on through till dawn with the rest of the people there. The next day, I look at my bed and there's a massive wet patch on it. Apparently we had some squirters. TLDR. Got drunk, made a fool of myself at my birthday, chucked up a cocktail of vodka and Big Macs, had an orgy with 6 girls and 2 mates. Best birthday ever. Bill Murray showed up to my birthday party and smoked a blunt with me while discussing Adventure Time. Have video, will post. You bastard. Don't know if this fit or is even considered wild, as going to parties isn't really my thing. But I've been to a party where you could buy drugs with your credit debit card. There was a regular looking bar where you could order drinks, along with lines of coke or whatever you wanted really. People literally walked around with joints and plates with lines of coke. Never seen anything like it before or since. We threw a foam party one year. Homemade foam maker out of a huge leaf blower, detergent, and a hockey jersey. Jersey went around the end of the blower to disperse the foam. It's amazing what people will do in public when they think no one can see them. We caught one couple having sex, and another dude getting a handy. Same girl both times. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.